Hello everyone. Today we are doing a install of Director 8.61, and there's going to be the full gamut of firewall, a .NET prerequisite, notes during the install, as well as opening it up post-install. So the first thing that we're going to do is make sure that we have our firewall ports open, and we're going to open ports for backup as well as replication and console. These are going to be inbound rules, and we're going to create a new rule on the right side here, and we're just going to select by port. Now for the first one is going to be 2546, and that is so that backups will be able to hit the vault. We want to allow that connection. And for this environment, it will be across all three of these. I'm just going to name mine Carbonite EVault Backup because that is the port for backup is 2546. The next port that we're going to open is actually two ports. We're going to open up 2547 and 12547. Those are the two ports required for replication. This vault will be replicating. If this is a standalone vault, you will not need these ports. Again, allow that connection across all three. If this was a restricted server, you might want to limit that, but for our case, we're just going to keep it. Okay, and the last rule that we're going to add right now is again a port of 809, and that is for the director console. If you're going to be managing this console from a remote location, then this is needed. Okay, and there we go. It's very simple to do that. The next prerequisite that we want to do is adding in the .NET Framework. If I can type right, there we go. The .NET Framework 3.5. Now for .NET 3.5, we're going to want to specify an alternate path, at least in my scenario. The reason for this is that the .NET 3.5 for some reason doesn't always come in smoothly, and even though I've got the ISO mounted here on the drive, I still have to specify this path. If for some reason you forget this step, it's not a big deal. Director during the very first part of the install will just pop up and say, hey, there's no .NET 3.5, please install that first. Okay, now that we've got .NET 3.5 installed, we can move forward with the Director software. Even though I am administrator, I always like to run as admin, just a preference thing. And as a note, this can take a minute to pop up for some reason that in the coding, it can take a little bit of time, especially if the system is a little bit busier. And this is common here for the pending reboots. And we always want to make sure to perform a reboot when this comes up. As a note, as an FYI for you, there is a way to bypass this if it is absolutely required, but there is the potential to run into issues. And so we're going to go ahead and reboot this now. And we're back. Now that we've completed that reboot, we're just going to kick off the director install again. Then go through and select next and next, making sure to Read and acknowledge as appropriate. For our scenario here, we want the full director package, including the UI. If you're on your own computer, like a personal laptop or something, and just need the UI to make a connection to a remote director install, you can select the bottom option. And this is going to be a standard vault. Yeah, this install will actually be a passive vault in the end, but you still select standard vault. And then the license key that you got from your account manager or a temporary key from support, etc. Now the default location will either be C drive director or program files, etc. director. Sometimes if you have additional drives, you will have an additional location. So you can go in here to browse and select a different drive. My install currently only has a C drive, and so I'm fine with leaving it on the C drive. All local disks is the default. If you have additional drive litters for additional space, then you can select those. It will do the, for example, the D drive and the E drive. It will use those for storage, and then it will only use the C drive for the metadata information if you do choose all local disks with the C drive still there. Otherwise, you can select an additional drive and it will only use that drive. In another video, I'll go into a little bit more depth of storage locations. The database, etc., this is all standard for SQL installs, and we're just going to leave these at defaults. Most of the time that will be the case, and a external location or another drive is not needed. In this part of the wizard, you can go through and set up email notifications, and my preference for this is to actually uncheck this box and set them up afterwards within the Vault settings. The account that gets created automatically is the Vault service account, and that is for auditing, etc., if needed to basically check what the Vault services are running as. If for some reason you needed to use a custom account and have the auditing trace that way, you can enter that in here or enter it later in the services MSC. For the default standard installation, creating an account automatically is fine. And now we go through the installation wizard portion. The SQL portion of this can take a little bit of time. And with that, it is installed. It took like 5 minutes or so. And we come up to the reporting service. Now this reporting service is an external function of director that gets bundled with director. And so that's not something that I'm going to cover as far as this goes. So we're going to actually move forward with the install, but not register it. And that's this portion down here where it says I do not want to register the reporting service to the API. And then it comes up with this little warning saying, hey, if you want to do it later, this is the syntax, and this will be covered at a later time. This final part here is just the main director portion waiting for the reporting service installer to finish. And so it's just checking every once in a while to be done. Now the install shield wizard here is telling us that the key that we put in will function for 30 days, even if it is a valid permanent key, just because we have to activate it. So let's go do that now. We now have a link on the desktop, so I'm just going to open that up. And we have a blank workspace. So I'm just going to adjust this for a little bit easier viewing. And in the workspace, you can either right click to New Vault Connection or File, New Vault Connection. And in here, I prefer to put in the host name. And again, this is going to be our passive vault, thus I've named it with a P at the end. And then I'm just going to use Windows Authentication because I am an admin logged in here. You can see here we've got a good status report of all the information about this vault. And now we've got this icon, little filing cabinet icon, that shows us that this is a standalone vault. When we go to configure the active vault, it'll automatically change this to a different icon with a little blue dot, and the active replication dropdown will change to passive. One of the final things that we'll want to do here is save this workspace so that for later we don't have to go through that process again, and then activate the license. So we're going to go into Vault Settings here, License Summary, and there's our warning again saying it's only going to be good for the 30 days. So now we go to Manage Licenses. And then in here, we want to go to Online Activation. If for some reason the online activation doesn't work or this vault is in a location without internet access, you can go to the manual activation. It will give you a large text block that you can send into the support team or activation website. And from there, you'll be able to manually activate it with a text file that it responds back to you with. And it looks like we may need to do that here. And so I'll go through that process now. Just select the manual activation button. And then we do not have an activation code for this yet because we need to generate it. So we're going to select no. And here is the full block of text. And I'm just going to copy that to clipboard and then come back after I've taken that the activation request from the website. Okay, now that I've got the activation key, I'm going to select manual activation again and say yes this time because I do have that activation code or key. I'm going to paste it in here, select activate now. And you can see here that the status has changed to activated. And when I select OK, we now have Director activated. And that's it for the basic install and setup for Director. In another video, we will go through setting up a customer and being able to set up an agent and complete those backups.